The buyer has changed. We will talk about three major trends which indicate the shift of the power center from the seller to the buyer. First, the buyer is not buying interruption anymore. The traditional sales mechanism, the process, is based upon our ability to interrupt the buyer's day. It was welcome 30, 40, 50 years back because the salesperson was the sole carrier of information for the buyer. He also brought information about new technologies, about competition, about what's going on in the market. Not anymore. A few months back, we were running a campaign with the help of an agency in Toronto to reach out to our target audience for PitchLink, typically sales leaders and purchase heads. Our click-through rate of the emails were 8 to 9%. Our positive response, we were not trying to sell PitchLink, we were just trying to get an interview to understand and get feedback from the marketplace. Our positive response, where prospects we reached out to agreed to talk to us, was about 1.1%. The matured actual dialogues was about 0.3% of the whole campaign. The more interesting thing is, more than 2.5% of the respondents of the whole base, compared to the 1.1% of positive response, 2.5% actually took the time to write to us to say, don't send me mails anymore, take me off your list, how did you get my email, so on and so forth. The buyers are not buying interruption anymore. Enough data is available pointing us to that direction. The second major shift that we see is the fact that the selling buying process has become buyer-led. It's nothing new. About 7-8 years back, the good folks at HubSpot articulated this in an idea called inbound. Their concept was that put out relevant content, and people who are looking for your product or service, they will find that content and then they will come to you, essentially expressing their intent much more directly than through an outreach program. That's not the only sign, by the way. If we look at the B2C area, the whole explosion of e-commerce indicates the same thing. Amazon doesn't know why you are going there today. All Amazon wants you to know is that everything that you want to buy is available there. But what really is happening is you are going to Amazon with a product idea or a specific thing in mind, and you are going and buying it. The fact is, the buyer today is researching online. He's not looking at the salesperson's data or advertisements. The buyer has finished nearly 2/3 of his journey, the decision-making journey, even before he has exposed himself to the market. The third major shift is with analytics. The Facebook Cambridge Analytica scandal, which broke a few months back, brought this front and center. GDPR, the European Union's legislation, focuses on that squarely. California has passed its own legislation. All the countries, including our own, are working on similar legislations. It will become impossible or illegal to surreptitiously track data about buyer behavior. The buyer is going to decide what behavioral data he will pass on to the marketplace or to the seller. A lot more is on the anvil, but that's a definitive change in the way we do tracking of buyers. Even when we are engaging with a buyer with permission, with his consent, there are many transactional problems that a buyer-seller engagement faces. For example, getting that time, synchronous time to meet, the face-to-face interview or online synchronous time. Uh, we were reaching out to sales leaders while running a campaign for PitchLink, and I was speaking to this lady in Texas, and 3 minutes into the call, she told me, "Hey Shubhanjan, I'm getting another call which I need to take, and let's reschedule this chat." And that took me 3 to 4 weeks before I could get her back on that call. It happens all the time. Getting a face-to-face meeting is a problem. Sharing documents is a problem. Mails have limitations, permission issues with things like Google Drive and Dropbox. The whole issue about downloading and managing sales collaterals by the buyer, sharing it internally. When you're looking at an account-based marketing scenario, there is a number that floats around 5.8 people per account. There are multiple people looking at a proposition. Trying to manage these multiple threads and multiple questions between multiple people on both sides is a nightmare. As we were looking at these transactional pains of getting a face-to-face meeting, sharing of files, downloads, collaboration between the teams at both ends, and managing multiple threads of communication, our thought was, is it possible to reduce this entire complex process into a single link? That was the genesis of the idea of PitchLink, and PitchLink addresses all these issues. PitchLink is built ground up as a buyer-led buying-selling engagement platform. It is selling with zero interruption and with permission. It takes into account marketing and sales collaboration on the seller side and account-based marketing, multiple people on the buyer side. And it is deeply rooted in ethical analytics. Let me show you a quick demo on how PitchLink actually delivers on these promises.
PitchLink is a buyer-seller engagement platform built to share value propositions. It enables continued engagement, removing friction until closure of a deal. The seller constructs a personalized sales pitch using audio, video, marketing and sales collaterals, and other relevant information. The pitch is self-contained. Once the buyer receives it, they simply click a link to view it, without having to download any file. The elements of the pitch are presented as a linear pitch flow. The seller is able to present the pitch with added context by inserting recordings of his own voice as audio or video. This makes it as real and personalized as a face-to-face meeting. The buyer simply watches, listens, or reads each element of the pitch if it is of interest. If the pitch is not of interest to the prospective buyer, they can notify their disinterest and disengage. PitchLink promotes ethical analytics, which gives the buyer the choice to disclose engagement data or not. Once the buyer receives the pitch, they can share it internally within the organization, bringing all stakeholders on the same page. All stakeholders within the organization can now view the pitch and engage in internal discussion on the platform. The buyer organization engages with the seller only when necessary. When the seller needs to be engaged, the buyer posts a query to the seller in the seller's discussion room. All team members have access to internal analytics, which shows team engagement in granular detail. This lends to a collaborative and transparent process at the buyer's end. PitchLink removes the need to use mails or other communication channels and struggle by juggling multiple conversation threads in multiple applications. PitchLink empowers the buyer to lead the discussion the way they want and take the discussion to a logical conclusion, because at the end, only the buyer can close a sale.
PitchLink is featured in both the global sales technology landscapes of Nicholas Kauchkovsky and Nancy Nardin.